What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? 49 coming at you with another community shoutcast for the AGI Gaming Dota 2 and New Zealand Championship. Loading into game number 2 of TDT up against YBS, so the Doto team up against Yolo brand Swagtronics. Game number 1 off the back of the split push coming up from Shep, who played an absolutely phenomenal Morphling. They were able to actually, they kind of risked it all on an all-out base race. Turned out to be quite disastrous, and the Morphling took out a free set of racks and just went for the tier 4s and ended the game. Batrider first ban coming out from TDT, so they're sticking to their guns. MX, who fought YBS in the semifinals and actually knocked them down to the losers bracket. Respect ban Morphling in all of their games, and I now finally understand why. Shep was able to get a very fast E-Blade, make a lot of plays on his own, and going for a lot of kills. Morphling, who has been largely ignored ever since the fall of TI2 when he was nerfed down to hell. With the recent buffs, with the reversion of waveforms, so can now use attacks as well as use abilities while he's waveforming, just as he was back in TI2, as well as the fact that his base attack time has been reduced to 1.6, means that he is a fairly powerful carry hero that is still viable, requires a bit of a different lineup than compared to the Faceless Void. He doesn't have that immediate teamfight impact. TDT, they definitely had a massive teamfight advantage in the early and mid stages of the game, but instead of going in for a lot of 5-man pushes, they decided to sit back and farm. They got a bit passive, and that cost them the game. It looks like my co-caster actually went to grab carrot, so he won't be joining me for this game. So it looks like first pick over inside of TDT. They might be going with the first pick Tidehunter again. Tidehunter was able to do a lot of work, especially in the off lane and the mid stages of the game. But once the laning phase ended, when they spent all this time dicking around farming, that's when Tidehunter really tapered off compared to the Darkseer. So while TDT weren't really accomplishing much and was just the Void and the Viper farming, and the rest of his team kind of lagged behind. While YBS, they're with the Chen pickup, the macro advantage they have of having the Chen constantly stacking and constantly being able to clear out camps, as well as the fact that they've got 4 heroes that are farming, and they've got a lot more experience going towards their support hero, the Lich, since it's a dual lane as opposed to a tri-lane. Tidehunter the first pick once again, so they've left the Morphling unchecked over for YBS. They could be going for another crazy Morphling strat. They did. Pengu, on the other hand, over in the DK, also deserves a lot of props for his performance in the mid lane. Despite being up against the Viper, especially as a melee hero with the Dragon Knight, he was not only able to break even, he actually was able to out-level the Viper. That was just off the back of Warrunner, who was constantly stacking up the neutral camps for Dragon Knight to go over and breathe fire down. Good way for the DK to be able to recover and actually be able to beat the Viper. And Faceless Void, first pickup coming out from YBS, and they can choose to go for a Faceless Void Lich combination. They actually picked up Lich early on in order to bait out the Faceless Void pickup from TDT. So Faceless Void being picked up as well as Witch Doctor, so they're a fan of that Skrillex Death Ward. Witch Doctor and Faceless Void, very powerful combination, scales incredibly well in all stages of the game. The difference for compete between the Witch Doctor and the Lich, or the Witch Doctor and the Shadow Shaman, is Witch Doctor's Death Ward, if you get the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, at level 3 will do more DPS than pretty much any other hero in the game. Just because it will split to all 5 heroes at once. The bounce range is ridiculous. The range of the ward itself is crazy. So it will just completely decimate the entire team. 3 attacks a second. It might actually be 3.2 or something ridiculous now with the recent buff to the attack speed of the Death Ward. And with each of those attacks bouncing across to up to 4 targets, 4 additional targets, the Aghanim Scepter upgraded Witch Doctor's ultimate in conjunction with the Chronosphere has a massive amount of teamfight impact, and Witch Doctor in lane is also very dangerous, especially against an offlane hero such as the Tidehunter, since you could use the Malediction as well. You could use the Paralyzing Cast to catch him out of lane, utilize the Malediction. If you deal enough damage, the Malediction might be enough to be able to make Tidehunter pop.
10 seconds remaining.
Ancient Apparition, second pickup to support heroes. Now moving on to the second banning phase. It'll be interesting to see what heroes they decide to ban out. Now they can choose to ban out the Morphling if they really want to do so. Since Faceless Void, it doesn't necessarily have to be a tri-lane Faceless Void. It can be an off-lane, similar to what AGI likes to do with their off-lane player universe. Bans coming out from YBS. They banned out the Viper, so even though Pengu was able to do very well in the mid lane, they definitely do not want to play against that again. Viper offers you a massive amount of mid-game teamfight presence if he's able to, since he's a natural mech carrier in the mid lane. He's also able to win most 1v1 matchups unless there are constant support rotations, and even then, if he goes for a much more passive max corrosive skin build, and if he has some support rotations of his own, he can make them pay very dearly for every single kill they get on him.
5 seconds remaining.
Fourth ban now coming out from TDT. They know that potentially the off lane as well, or the safe lane, as well as the primary support has been decided. If it is a tri-lane Faceless Void up against the Titan as the off laner, he will be able to do a good job at being able to zone out the Faceless Void when the supports rotate. However, with the supports in lane, Tidehunter's going to be having a very difficult time. However, that being said, if it's an off-lane Faceless Void, YBS might not want to do so, just because if it's Void v Tidehunter, then Tidehunter will be able to easily beat the Faceless Void just off the back of the Anchor Smash. And so that means that YBS might be looking to go for a tri-lane Void, in which case they'll pick up another off-lane hero. But until they finalize the pick with another off-lane hero, you could assume that Void is both the tri-lane and the off-lane. One of the reasons why Faceless Void is such a powerful pick in the current metagame is it gives the drafter a lot of flexibility in what to do. Fourth ban coming up from YBS. They know that the off-lane as well as one of the supports has been decided. Mid lane won't be picked up until much later on in the second or third picking stage, because you don't want to give away too much information, especially if it's a hero such as an OD that can be hard countered by another hero such as a Razor or a Viper. Third pick coming out from YBS. If they decide to pick up their offlaner now, they can lock it in. Otherwise, they could choose to pick up their a teamfight oriented mid hero. They could decide to go for Faceless Void and Darkseer. Spes, who was actually quite shut down in the early stages of the game, recovered very nicely. While Darkseer in the early stages of the game isn't that effective in teamfights, TDT they hesitated to play quite passively in the mid game, where they should be playing a lot more aggressively. And as a result, they gave Space enough space, funnily enough, to be able to pick up his level 2 Darkseer Wall, his level 4 Vacuum, his Blink Dagger, and then he was able to create a lot of plays for his team. So YBS deliberating on what hero to pick up. They could choose to go for another jungling hero. They could maybe have Warrunner over on the jungle Enigma. And have Faceless Void and Witch Doctor up against the Tidehunter. But the drawback of that is Tidehunter will actually be able to do a lot more damage than that. Witch Doctor alone isn't going to be enough to be able to zone out the Tidehunter. If Tidehunter can get close enough to do a lot of damage with the Anchor Smash, or if he's able to clip Faceless Void, he can really impede his farming capabilities. And that's something that YBS definitely don't want to happen. So Shep most likely going to be playing the Faceless Void, one position player for the team. Pengu going to be the dedicated mid lane player. Freydolf probably going to be the support player, so he'll be either on the Witch Doctor, and we could be seeing Warrunner over on a jungling support, or he even could be seeing something like a Meepo. Warrunner is known for playing Meepo in either the mid or the support position. So Witch Doctor, and he's going for Chen once again. So if it ain't broke, don't bother fixing it. So once again, we have a jungle support to the Chen, providing that strategic and macro control. So there are essentially two ways you can play the Chen. So the difference between Chen and an Enchantress is Chen doesn't have to necessarily play active in the early stages of the game. He still can provide that presence, but unlike an Enchantress who pretty much has to play hyper aggressive from one, Chen can sit back. If he's efficient with his jungle pens, which Warrunner has shown us he is, he can get a lot of farm, a lot of EXP, and continue to provide golden experience to the rest of his teammates. And constantly stacking by constantly clearing out camps, and by utilizing his microing his creep so he can stack multiple camps at the same time. Chen can then suddenly come out of the jungle 9-10 minutes in with a mech or arcane boots, start pressuring towers, go for kills, and then start to snowball from there. The disadvantage of Chen though is you constantly have to be ahead. You can't really play from behind with Chen. Wraith King being picked up, so it could be an AA Wraith King combination. That's something that TDT like to do. So it could be Nado's signature over on the Wraith King, and Crapack over on the Ancient Apparition, with Notra back on his Tidehunter. Fourth pick coming out from YBS, with the Outworld Destroyer being banned. They could be picking up a softer mid hero, so we could be seeing something like a Puck, which would work very well with their lineup. Since you have the Dream Core as well as the Chronosphere, so you've got two ways to be able to control their enemy's position, and two ways to be able to disrupt them or to prevent them from clumping. And then instead going for a Silencer. Silencer most likely will be running the mid position, just because you already have Witch Doctor as a dedicated support, and Silencer isn't an effective offlane hero, since all you have to do is switch up your lane stance, and Silencer against the tri-lane doesn't do anything at all compared to Tidehunter against the tri-lane, who will still be able to at least be able to sap EXP. So mid Silencer coming out. Silencer a great way to be able to counteract the massive teamfight combination coming out from the Tidehunter. If Tidehunter blinks, if Silencer as able to press the global silence in time, or if Tidehunter doesn't catch up the Silencer and he initiates some Ravages, and then Silencer can press R, Tidehunter's caught himself in a bad position. If his teammates jump in after him, they're now caught behind enemy lines without any kind of support. They no longer have the ability to use spells, with Silencer being able to use his ultimate, and Silencer probably would be going for the Aghanim. He could be going for the Aghanim Scepter into Refresher Orb. Gives you a massive amount of teamfight control, since that's 14 seconds of silence. It means that they're not going to get a single spell off in the fight, and with the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, Silencer's ultimate applying that curse to the silent actually does a fair amount of damage. It's comparable to the Zeus's Thunder God's Wrath, although not at once, but it has the added benefit of burning off mana. which for a hero like a Wraith King or a Titan to have limited mana pools, it's a very critical factor. As a Wraith King without mana to reincarnate is essentially a useless hero. If Wraith King is unable to get a reincarnate off in the fight, you'd be better off picking somebody else. So the understudy back on this Gyrocopter. Let's hope he doesn't go Sage and Yasha this time, but knowing him, most likely we'll be seeing an SNY. 5th ban coming out from YBS. Should be interesting to see whether they decide to ban out now. They want to ban out mid lane heroes that do well against the Silencer. But Silencer with the Orb, as well as with the Last Word, or the Curse of the Silence, actually fares very well against most mid matchups. We could be seeing something maybe like a Puck ban. Since Puck, especially in conjunction with the Gyrocopter, is a very dangerous combination. Dream Coil and Cooldown. If you're able to land both ticks of Cooldown, you do a huge amount of damage. Pengu really deliberating on the pickup. And that being said, the Faceless Void most likely going to be the safe lane farmer, but they could always choose to, if they pick up another more aggressive carry, they could always send Faceless Void into the offlane and have him just farm up an Aghanim Scepter for his ultimate. Since Faceless Void with the Chronosphere with Witch Doctor alone is enough to win them fights, so they could really decide to hammer it home. They ban out the Templar Assassin. Templar Assassin, another great hero that deals with the Silencer. Because at level 1 you win the lane with the Refraction. With level 2, once you have the Sideblade, you're able to zone out the Silencer. And so, while Silencer in theory could break the Refraction charges with Curse of the Silence, he's not going to make it that far into lane. Templar Assassin will be able to win the lane at level 1 and level 2. And at that point, it's too far behind for Silencer to be able to recover. Darkseer being banned out, so they don't want to deal with that teamfight combination once again. And it also means that Faceless Void is more and more being pigeonholed into being the offlaner, or into being the farmer, unless they're able to pick up another offlaner now. But Darkseer is one of the heroes that actually can do very well against the Tidehunter in the offlane position, especially if it's a 1v1, if they decide to clash try-v-try, which in this case they should be, because they know it's a very passive lane. Faceless Void and the Witch Doctor, if he's going to be their tri-lane farmer, their safe lane farmer, or if they decide to pick up another carry like, say, a Morphling, Witch Doctor and Morphling is a very passive lane compared to the tri-lane combination we've got coming out of the Gyrocopter, the Wraith King, and the Ancient Apparition. So we could be seeing another Morphling pickup. They've only got 12 seconds left to decide, and that in that case it'd be the offline Faceless Void. So if they decide to clash try-v-try, it favors TDT heavily, since Tidehunter should be able to beat Faceless Void in a one-on-one matchup, but instead they go for the Centaur Warrunner, which is also very questionable, just because Centaur Warrunner up against Tide, if they clash try-v-try, which they should be, will be able to do very well. But YBS, they might have already considered this. They know that the enemy might wants to clash try-v-try, so in that case they might send the Faceless Void and the Witch Doctor to the bot lane, send Centaur Warrunner to the top lane, in which case it'll be Centaur Warrunner up against the tri-lane and that's the safe lane with Chen nearby to provide some support if needed. Up against the Tidehunter in the bottom lane, who's got Witch Doctor bound hitting him while Faceless Void's able to get some farm.
5 seconds
Could be some next level mind games coming out from YBS. But that being said, if they stick to their standard lanes of Faceless Void and Witch Doctor top and Centaur Warrunner bot, if Centaur Warrunner is able to position himself effectively and doesn't die in the early stages of the game, just being able to provide the Stampede will be a huge boon, especially in the mid game. And Razor going to be sent mid. Razor, very powerful hero, especially against the likes of the Silencer, just because if Silencer goes in for the last word, it's going to be eating the unstable current. With the Plasma Field, you can zone them out, and with the static link, you're easily able to outlast him with the damage that you have. So I walk mid player going to be up on the Razor. Looks like we've got the understudy up on the Gyrocopter. Another signature. So once again, looks like they've actually switched up the offlane position. So it should be interesting to see how they decide to do it. Once again back on the Chen. Shepholm up on the Faceless Void. Freydolf up on the Witch Doctor, and Space on the offlane. So Crabpack going to be the Ancient Apparition. We're just waiting for the last player to pick their hero.
10 seconds remaining.
Just going to quickly introduce the players from both teams. Over on Yolo brand Swagtronics, Freydolf on the 5 position Witch Doctor, Warrunner on the 4 position Chen, Pengu on the 2 position Silencer, heading over to the mid lane. Shepherthome up on the 1 position Faceless Void, looks like he also goes subscribe to the Quelling Blade School of Thought. And Space over on the Centaur Warrunner, he's going to be the 3 position on the off lane. Over for the boys and the Doto team. I Walk, mid lane player, is going to be playing up on the Razor. Boots first, so he's going for a very active build. They decided to clash try-v-try. So Crabpack over on the 5 position Ancient Apparition. Notra, who's usually the offlane player, this time going to be playing the 4 position as the Wraith King. And the understudy up on the 1 position Gyrocopter. And another signature going to be the 3 position. So this, the laning situation heavily favors TDT. And Tidehunter should be able to completely destroy Space in lane, especially since he knows that since he's in the safe lane, he doesn't have to go boots first. And so that gives him a lot more regen. That means he's going to be even more difficult to be able to bully out of the lane. Since Warrunner usually wins most 1v1 melee matchups because he can rely on the double edge and hoof stomp combination to be able to do a lot of burst damage, especially once he picks up Tranquil Boots. But Tidehunter, with the amount of regen he has, he could sustain himself through that, but he won't be able to let Centaur Warrunner get enough levels to get to reach that stage. And Centaur Warrunner is a melee hero. Every time he goes into try to go to creep, he's going to be eating an Anchor Smash. And Anchor Smash damage stacks up very quickly.
The battle begins for good.
Looks like YBS, at a sudden change of heart, they decide to send Shepherthome bot. And Warrenton's actually going to be farming over in the enemy jungle. So they're completely switching up their lanes. I guess they predicted that this sort of thing would happen. So the last minute change. And in that case, without boots first on the Tidehunter, he's got to be a bit careful. He doesn't have the escape capability that you'd like. But even then, up against a dual lane, he should be fine, at least until Chen comes out of the jungle. So we could be seeing a much more active Warrenton this game. Smoke of Deceit up on him, so he really wants to be a lot more active once he gets a few creeps up. Pengu being able to have a much more successful creep block, so Silencer went for Curse of the Silence at 1. Good recognition. Since Faceless, since Razor, if he went for Plasma Field at 1, which rarely happens but could, it means that he'll be forced to blow otherwise cop a fair amount of damage. Since he went for Static Link at 1, Curse of the Silence wouldn't be as effective. Probably would have preferred maybe a point in the glaive or the last word. Usually it's a point over in glaive at 1 just to give you that orb harass, as well as the extra damage. There's a slight amount of extra damage you get from the orb, but it could mean the difference between getting the creep and getting denied. Notra, no sentry up on him. Crab Pack smoke up on him as well. Chilling Touch at 1. Probably going to be wanting to max out the Chilling Touch. Although that being said, Max Cold Feet build with the Wraith King actually is fairly effective, just because the Wraith Fire Blast is usually enough in conjunction with the Ice Vortex to ensure that it pops. Eyewalk going to be eating a Curse of the Silence. Immediately goes for Static Link. The Link is broken. Did that way too early. Didn't even get any damage from that. He needed to move a lot closer, especially with the boots advantage he has. And so Pengu, he knows that he actually just has a free level 2. Just because Eyewalk, he's got 10 seconds before he could use Static Link again. And since he went boots, Pengu has got significantly more base damage. That's a huge advantage going in favor of the Silencer. He's just picked up level 2. Now he's got glaives. So now he could glaive harass Eyewalk. So next time Eyewalk goes in for a Static Link trade, he's going to be a lot lower HP. Especially since Razor actually gambled a lot. He needed to get a good link off with the boots first build that he went. And Pengu is now heavily outlast hitting him. 5 for 1 compared to Razor, who's got 0 last hits and 1 deny. And now the Curse of the Silence is starting to do its work. Gradually he'll start to take him down, especially since at level 1 with Static Link, he can't even get in link range. So he's constantly going to be eating that small amount of damage. And once that Curse of the Silence gets leveled up, it will be quite effective, especially since Razor's going towards the Plasma Field build. So a pretty standard build. Link at 1 and over in the bottom lane, in the top lane, never mind. Understudy gets a kill over on Centaur Warrunner, so that's just the disadvantage of having your Warrunner go top, as opposed to bottom. Even though he went boots first, you don't have any support there. There's more angles for them to come in from, coming from around the side. Catch him out. You can dive them under the tower. The creep wave is naturally pushing towards your tower. Centaur Warrunner looks like he went hoof stomp at 1, return at 2. And the understudy, starting with Blades of Attack, he gets a very fast phase boots up on him as per usual. Static Link, this time he's able to drain 14 damage, so it'll give him enough damage to be able to outlast hit the Silencer. But already TDT, off to a bit of a good start. Now the signature, throwing out the Yank Smashes on Shep, doing a lot of harassment, but the Hellbear Smasher comes out. There's the, never mind, he decides to hold on to the collapse as he would have missed it. And Shepherthome, while they did, they switched this tri-lane specifically so the Centaur Warrunner wouldn't get shut down, but he's fed First Blood, and Shep as a result is going to be the one that's going to be taking a bit more damage, since he's going to be having a difficult laning situation up against the Tidehunter. It could be the reason why he decided to buy the Quelling Blade. So even through the Anchor Smash, Faceless Void has incredibly high base damage, so he still should be able to last hit. Since if he has a damage of about 30, and with the Quelling Blade, 39 damage, you can somewhat be able to last it with that. Notra boots up on him. Space has to be very careful. If he gets caught out with a Ray Fire Blast, he could be taking a fall. And the understudy already placing a lot of pressure. So TDT, this time they've learned a mistake. They know they have to play active. They have to play a lot more aggressive. They can't rest on their laurels. Pengu caught out with the unstable current. Does a lot of damage though. With the Curse of the Silence as well as the last word. Eyewalk is being heavily zoned out of this lane.
But it doesn't look good.
Another signature. Hanging around. He's spotting out where he's trying to figure out where the Chen is going. Turns around with a Gush. Very early point in Gush. Up on the Tidehunter. Usually you don't want to skill up the Gush until you've got 2 points up in the shell and maybe 2 points up in the Anchor Smash. But recognizing that it gives him a lot more killing power in this lane. Since he's up against a dual lane, And the Poison Gush gives you a lot more killing power, but even then, despite the presence of the Tidehunter, Faceless Void still leads the CS scoreboard to 19 for 6 compared to 14 for 2 over on the Gyrocopter since he's been committing for pushes. So while he did get an influx of gold with the first blood, that is starting to wear off. And so if Shep is able to continue to keep lasting the way he is, should be able to pick up a fair amount of farm. Another signature, using the X Smash to farm, still gets denied by Freydolf. Witch Doctor hits very hard for a range hero and has 600 range to boot. Razor choosing the max out Static Link, so just a casual point in the plasma field to provide the flying vision. I believe Static Link's actually bugged in Doto 2, where it doesn't provide the flying vision that it should. Going for the Static Link, so even if Pengu grabs the Invis Room, it actually denies it and gets a link off. That actually could be a kill. Pengu's going to be taken 4 right now. There's nothing he can do to keep himself alive. Plasma field pops to prevent him from being disarmed, and I walk. Good recognition coming up from him, and the Radiant top tower takes a fall. TDT putting themselves in a really good position. They know that with the passive Chen farming in the jungle, Chen level 3, he hasn't had the luxury of being able to go for efficient jungle pants. He has to be playing a lot more active. He needs to get a kill, he needs to get a tower. Now his signature eats the Malediction to the face. Wraith Fire Blast on Freydolf. Freydolf has put himself a bit too far forward. He's going to be taking the fall with one more right click. Shepherd Thumb as well also could be taking fall if he's not too careful. No second Wraith Fire Blast since he doesn't have enough mana. He actually could have used a Tactical Clarity there, just to give him that little burst of mana to go for that second Wraith Fire Blast. That would have been another kill, but chose not to do so. Undersided now left alone up against space. Centaur Warrunner, usually a hero that can bully other carries out of the lane, but against a Gyrocopter, when you walk up to double edge, you're going to eat a Rocket Barrage to the face, as that means that Space has to play very passive. He's also going to be eating the occasional flat cannon hits. I walk playing very aggressive against Pengu. He's going to be incredibly careful. The support rotating in. Shepherd Thumb walks up, just going to be able to smack him down, especially the Curse of the Silence. He also blows Eye of the Storm. Very early point up in the Eye of the Storm. Usually a lot of Razor players actually skip Eye of the Storm at 6, since it actually doesn't give you all too much damage. For an extra point up into the Plasma Field, which gives you a lot more reliable damage, or even an extra point up in the Unstable Current, to give yourself more movement speed. So Razor, he managed to claw himself back into a good position, but unfortunately throws it away. Pengu, playing a lot more safe. Now he's able to start picking up his farm. With the Chen being the mech carrier, looks like Pengu probably could go for a 4-star first, similar to an OD. Unless if he's decided to rush that Aghanim Scepter, in which case, and assuming by the curse build, he could be most likely be rushing the Aghanim Scepter. If he's able to get that up in the first 20 minutes of the game, he could do a huge amount of work with that. Arcane Boots now up on the another signature. Looks like the Tri-Lane's actually rotated bots, and now it's a Tidehunter Tri-Lane, which is a bit of a pity considering he really needs level 6 if they want to take these engagements. Hand to minus 6 minutes into the game, up on Faceless Void. So the assist gold he got from watching the Razor die. Looks like Space has now rotated bots. He knows he can't lane against the Gyrocopter, and he sure as hell can't lane against the Tidehunter either. So he's in a pretty bad situation. 2 points of return. Very surprising he chose to do so. Usually you only really need 1 point in return if you choose to go for it. Just because you want that maxed out double edge as soon as possible. It gives you so much burst damage. And it really enables you to recover, especially if you're doing poorly in lane, to recover through kills. And so if you catch a hero out of position with a double edge and a hoof stomp, usually enough to be able to blow up a support hero, especially one such as the Ancient Apparition. You could kill him very quickly. The grouping up mid, Pengu's going to eat a homing missile to the face, but he's got a haste room, so he's not really too fast. Flat Cannon doing a little bit of damage. And they're grouping up for an all-in push in the mid lane. Actually, a little bit of a misplay. You don't want a Chilling Touch when you're about to push a tower, because the negative 20 attack speed slows down the amount of DPS you're doing to the tower. Just because the tower is magic immune, it doesn't give a damn about the Chilling Touch magic damage. But that being said, with the catapult, they should be able to take this tower on mid. Pengu hanging around, trying to go for a deny. Almost gets it. Razor's able to snag it. And Razor probably going to be the mech carrier for his team. Shepherd Thumb rotating back to the top lane. Both teams seem to be rotating a lot more action, a lot more movement. Tidehunter farming up towards his Blink Dagger. TPing over to the top lane. He's going to continue to place pressure. He's going to go into whatever lane that the Faceless Void is, since he knows that with the Anchor Smash he should be able to continue to harass him out of lane. Pengu, without his tower, he's going to be a lot more passive now. He's going to be a lot more careful. And Silencer is a hero that doesn't really have any innate defensive capabilities. And Phase Boots up on the Wraith King, so he's going to be playing a lot more mobile Wraith King. He'll utilize the movement speed from the Phase Boots, as well as the snare that comes at the very end of Wraith Fire Blast to constantly stay on top of his target. Usually you do see Treads picked up on the 4 position Wraith King, since you could Tread switch to ensure that you always have enough mana for a Wraith Fire Blast or for a Reincarnate, as well as making yourself a bit tankier so you don't instantly die, since you want to make sure that you can at least tank a few spells before you die. But the Reincarnate isn't, it takes a lot more to trigger the Reincarnate. But that being said, Phase Boots gives you a lot more chasing capability. 4 heroes top once again. Gonna rotate for a kill on the Faceless Void. If they're able to kill the Faceless Void, they can really slow him down. And he's spotted up. He's got the Time Walk. Didn't time walk out in time, he's going to eat the gush, as well as the Ravage. They're committing a lot for this. Global Sun's being used, and Shepherd takes a fall. Bit unfortunate that the backtrack he wasn't able to backtrack another ability, since he might have been able to get out of there. Global Sun's committed for an exchange for a Ravage. So both big teamfight ultimates for both teams being wasted, as well as what looked like a Stampede. So they use a lot of spells to try to keep Shep alive. Unfortunately, he takes a fall, but the EXP lead is in favor of the die, just because they've got a lot more solo EXP, but even then, the only way they can stay ahead of solo EXP is so they don't get killed. So they keep going for pickoffs, which is what looks like Iwalker's trying to do. He's got a maxed out static link. He actually can go for a kill. Space, he realizes that Razor might try to dive him, so he pushes himself up forward. Trying to catch him up the hoofstomp. Freydog moves himself way too far forward and takes the fall once again. Space comes as well. He might need a cooldown. He's got 0 damage at the moment. Cooldown unfortunately wasted, but it's a 50-second cooldown on the cooldown. And while that's happening, Razor with all the borrowed damage should be able to do a bit of chip damage. Understudy eats a net to the face, triggers to the rocket barrage, fleeing for his life. He's a player that likes to go for a maxed out homing missile very early on as opposed to maxed out flat cannon. With the Helmet Dominator up on him, very, very fragile, but a huge amount of burst damage coming out with the rocket barrage, so he needs to start ancient stacking, since otherwise the Helmet Dominator is essentially wasted on him. Or if he doesn't dominate the creep, his teammates can do so, but even then, having a Helmet Dominator pretty much gives you an excuse to be the stack creeps. You share unit control with one of your support players, get them to constantly stack every minute on the minute if you're too busy to do so. And if they're able to take the bot tower as well, there'll be 3 towers for 0 towers. That'll give them a huge advantage when the mid game starts to kick in with that influx of gold. Pengu treads up on him, as well as Null Talisman. His items haven't really progressed all too well. He has managed to finish up his treads, but ever since then, no other big items. And looks like Arcane Boots up on Chen again, so he goes Arcane Boots then into the mech, just because with the Hand of God, I suppose it's all the heal you need in the early stages of the game. And if you did go for a mech, you wouldn't be able to use both the Hand of God and the mech at the same time, just because of how much mana you choose through. Iwalk Invisibility Rune popped up on him. He's going to max out the Plasma Field second, so a very aggressive build coming out from the Razor. With the Invisibility Rune, he decides to pop it. Almost will be picking up his mechanism. Notra, just going stats as well as stuns, a very old school Wraith King build. Kind of reminds me of the Crimson Quiso builds. Stun, stats, stun, stats. You stun them, then you stab them. If you're not doing one or the other, you make sure that you make damn sure that you do. That's of course back in the day when you had to build Armlet Medigian up on Wraith King. Now Wraith King can be played in a variety of roles, including 1 position, 2 position, as well as the 4 position. Space going to be eating the homing rocket to the face. But the entire team is now grouped up. Cooldown actually lands with Shepherdthorn. Lands a 2-man Chronosphere. Global Sun's a pop to give himself a little bit of covering fire as well, just to prevent the Ravage. Ravage flies out, frayed off as well, catches out 4. Hand of God being used. Space dies instantly, kills himself with a double edge with 1 more tick of damage from that. Warrunner takes the kill with the Understudy's flat cannon. Shepherdthorn fleeing for his life. The Ancient Apparition Ice Blast flies out. It's going to catch him, and with the stun flying out, he didn't actually destroy the stun. Could be taking 1 more tick and he will be dying. Fortunately, Razor wasn't giving chase, and with the Plasma Field, could have gone for a kill, but they were able to take the tower off the back of that. Good team fight going in favor of TDT. As YBS, the game just got a lot more difficult for them. 4,000 gold lead in favor of TDT. And the EXP lead is only 500. It's a negligible EXP difference, and that's actually quickly shortening. So it should be a pretty even EXP level for both teams. Wraith King, Magic Stick up on him. I guess he'll still be going towards the Blink Dagger just because he wants to have that immediate jump reaction. But at the same time, if they don't necessarily need the Blink Dagger on him, he could always go Phase Drum. Give himself a lot more chasing capability, but that's something you usually see more on a 2-position Wraith King. If you go Phase into Drum, just run people down. Mechanism now up on Iwalk. They were able to win that fight very convincingly without the mech. Wraith King has his Reincarnate now, hasn't used it yet, doesn't have enough mana to do so. So he could be looking to beef himself up with a lot more stats. Since without the treads, you don't have the tread swapping, so that's a huge part of the 4-position Wraith King, just because you need to ensure that you can get at least 2 stuns off as well as your Reincarnate. Since if they choose to completely ignore you and you throw out your second stun, they can turn around and kill you then, you not pop your Reincarnate. So it's always things that you have to keep in mind. Space. Just farming up the Blink Dagger, chose not to go for Tranquil Boots just because he's been having such a poor game. Wasn't able to pick up the Tranquil Boots early enough for it to really be effective. 3 points up in the double edge. He used the double edge right before he died. Was able to get that bit of damage out. He'll be having level 4 double edge very shortly. Frayed off, he really wished that he had that Death Ward in that engagement. Treating the maxed out Malediction over the Paralyzing Cask, and with the Faceless Void, that makes a lot of sense. Pengu looks like he could be going towards that 4-staff, or even a Dagon, but I don't think a Dagon would be very effective this game, especially with the Wraith King on the enemy team. So Staff of Wizardry up on him. If he was going for the Aghanim Scepter, you usually start with the point boosters because it gives you a lot more stats. That's a lot more cost efficient. Notra actually taking a fair few hits from Shep, but Shep knows that Reincarnate must be up, since he hasn't seen a pop yet. And Iwalk probably going to be farming towards that Aghanim Scepter. Aghanim Scepter on a Razor gives you a massive increase in damage, since it makes the Lightning proc at level 3 hit the target 3 times a second. So every Lightning Strike reduces armor by 1. So that means if you're fighting one-on-one against a Razor, you're going to die very, very quickly. Also, the more important part about it is it works on towers. So it gives you an insane amount of pushing power, which is something that Razor really lacks. And since Razor is a hero that relies on winning a lot of fights in the early to mid game, and then trying to snowball off that, he's not a hero that you could take into the ultra late stages of the game, just because he's got abysmal stat gain and very low armor. He really relies on his abilities. That's the only thing that keeps him balanced as well. Freydolf gonna be called out position. Stampede buying him a lot of room, able to juke him out since Wraith King didn't have enough vision to be able to throw out the stun. Good awareness from space, immediately throwing out the Stampede. Guess they must be screaming each other in Skype space. Blink Dagger now up on him, so he's got that initiation capability. But with Ravage up, this time TDT, they're not resting on their laurels. They know what they did wrong the last game. They're going to make up for it. They're grouping up as 5 whenever their ultimates are up. Curse sounds completely whiffs on Pengu. Pengu, since he... no, never mind. It looks like he is going for the Aghanim Scepter. Just start with Staff of Wizardry. Especially with the max cost of the Silence build, you're almost forced to go into Aghanim Scepter build. Since your effectiveness is fairly limited, that cost of Silence is so much work over Notra. If he throws out stun, he won't have enough to reincarnate. And they should be able to take that tail on the tier 2 tower, but while that happens, Chen in the top lane actually catches out full with the Chronosphere, forces out a Ravage on 1. Amazing plays from Shep. He backs away. He actually denies the tower space, is able to secure a kill over the Gyrocopter. It's a very important kill. Freydolf's going to take a fall with the ancient Apparition Ice Blast. Pengu fleeing for his life. Iwalk's going to be able to kill space, so it's a double kill for him. Pengu's also going to be taking a fall as well. Reincarnate up for Notra if he wants to use it, or another Wraith Fire Blast. So even though Shep was able to get a fantastic Chronosphere, Warrunner wasn't there at all. All he was able to do is continue to split push over the top. He's going to be taking a fall again. Iwalk doing so much work in these engagements. And YBS, an absolute catastrophe for them. They lost 4 for 1, as well as the tier 2. Although the tier 2 was at least denied to Shep, even though he got a fantastic Chronosphere off, his team wasn't there to really be able to take advantage of him. The Witch Doctor was out of position to be able to follow up with the Malediction Death Ward. Death Ward was popped, but he died way too quickly. Good fight going in favor of TDT. Just going to take a quick look at Golden EXP. Looks like a 5,000 gold lead, and EXP is now starting to climb towards the enemy team. Mech up on Warrunner. So Warrunner now really needs to hang around these engagements. So you have to keep in mind the Penitence nuke from Chen. The Test of Faith story, it's 200 to 400 pure damage. It actually is a fair amount of damage if you could use it to blow up a hero that space also jumps on. With 2 points up in the return. He's trying to clear out Ancients, but I don't think he'll be able to do so. He's no Tidehunter. And space is just realized, but he still should be able to stack the Ancients. Get a bit of farm. Understudy looks like someone has been stacking Ancients for him. He's dominated the creep, so he really needs a BKB now. Please, Kostage and Yasha again. Understudy, please. You need a BKB so you don't get blown up. The SNY does give you the strength, which will give you a bit more survivability. But it's better not to be hit by nukes than trying to tank through it. That being said, this is it. Understudy's got an SNY on every single Gyrocopter game, as well as every single carry game I've casted him in from the look of it. So he seems to have some kind of strange obsession with the item. Iwalk almost has his Aghanim Scepter. Tidehunter didn't have a blink in that last engagement, still was able to get a fairly... Actually, no, never mind, it was a terrible Ravager. The Ravager is forced out because of the Faceless Void, but nonetheless, off the back of the rest of his team, they were able to really secure a kill. Able to secure kills and clean up. Razor is completely unhindered, and Razor similar in the sense to the Viper. If you ignore Razor, he's able to do a massive amount of damage to all heroes on your team. Whereas if you focus him, he's a bit of a pain in the ass to bring down, especially with the unstable current. Once it's maxed out, you're going to be eating a lot of damage every time you try to hit him with a single target spell. And the Purge, which is more significant, 2 seconds snare. And you have to keep in mind the unstable current actually works on item usage as well. That's something that you don't want to do if you're low HPs. Turn around and try to use an item on the Razor. The amount of times Vengeful Spirits try to kill me with an Urn Charge and wind up killing yourself with a Purge. Things like this happen. Sentry Wards up on the Ancient Apparitions. They're being a lot more active this time in D1. They want to deprive the Diest out of as much vision possible. The 2 wards up. This ward's to ensure that they can clear out their ancients, and this ward's to ensure that the jungle's safe. Usually you don't want to ward both ward spots at the same time, but in this game they're playing very defensively. They know that if they don't have a ward there, the Radiant side can creep in and contest them at ancients. And if they don't have a ward there, they can sneak in through the jungle. So they've got 3 avenues of approach for entering the enemy jungle. So defensive wards placed out. 3-man smoke gank, they want to really catch out the Faceless Void and force them to use more of their abilities. If they can force out another Stampede, another Global Silence, or another Chronosphere, or if they're able to get the kill. Shep been playing very safe, he time walks out, Nostra, try to predict it, unfortunately time walk is a bit too far. Backtrack now maxed out. And Radiant actually lose the top tower, looks like it's just the creeps. Wraith King leading the charge, he's got Reincarnate, he isn't afraid of no ghost. Global Sun's being used, Notro running forward, he's got to be very careful, never mind, he's got Reincarnate. Reincarnate's being popped, Space lands to the hoof stomp. Gonna follow up, was about to follow up with the double edge, realized he's a bit too far forward, no team is there, Stampede's burned off. Space gonna be copying a lot of damage to that Plasma Field, hitting 3 units. Space takes a fall, Warrunner's in corner in a very bad place as well. Pengu fleeing for his life, tries to TP out, he might be able to do so, there's no stunts to be interrupted. Notro unfortunately went on Freydolf instead of following with the Pengu. Freydolf going to be taking another Blink Anchor Smash, he takes a fall. Shep time walks the hell out of there. Aghanim Scepter now up on the silencer. If he had that for that last engagement, things could have gone so much smoother. 2 for 1. Looks like Gyrocopter actually took a fall in the background. So Faceless Void, Blue Chronosphere was able to kill Gyrocopter. So where's your SNY now? And they should be able to take the tier 2 tower. It's without a Chronosphere and without a Global Silence. They can't defend this, even if all the heroes were up. Tidehunter doing a fair amount of damage on the tower. His Anchor Smash has been doing a lot of work in these engagements. You saw how much damage it did, pretty much gibleted the Witch Doctor once he was fleeing. And Notro been playing very aggressively, he actually went for a 4-staff. So a bit of a different build coming up from the Wraith. You usually see Trends into Blink. But the advantage of the 4-staffs, you can use it on your teammates. It's a much more team-based item. Space, blinks in, catches out Notro, double edge him in the face. Might be the kill him this time. Coastal Silence will be the kill him, unless he turns around and throws out a stun. Space is going to be taking a fall with a Wraith Fire Blast in the face. Pengu, a bit too far forward now, he takes a fall as well. And they're going to be clear out the Ancients, with Understudy being very grateful for this opportunity. This time he maxed out Flat Cannon, so he's going for a much more of a traditional Gyrocopter build. He does have the stats from the SMY, but he could have finished this BKB with the amount of gold he spent, especially with the amount of gold he'll receive from his Ancients. But that being said, the mid-game presence of the SNY, since it does give you a lot of stats, no longer counts as a unique attack modifier, so you can stack it with the Desolator. Shep with the double damage, he's going to try to take out the enemy's Ancient stacks, so they're swapping Ancients for Ancients. Somebody call HBO, we've got Ancient swapping happening. Oh well, he might actually scout this out inadvertently, never mind. Shep, even though he's got a double damage, he is copying a fair amount of damage with the Mask and Manaton. Oh, look's going to spawn him out. He's going to time lock, turns around the Chronosphere, starts going on Understudy. If he gets a time lock proc, he'll do so much damage. He's actually going to be able to kill him off with the Stampede. And one more right click. Global Sun's been used, so they're once again able to kill the Understudy. It's a lot of damage being done over to TDT's team fight. Shep, he's going to be carrying the rest of his team, since everything's starting to fall apart. The disadvantage of Chen is if you're behind, there's not all too much you can do. You have to get ahead and stay ahead. He's one of those heroes. Since when these team fights happen, if they're able to instantly kill Chen at the start of the fight, all the money that you've spent on building all these utility items, all the healing that you have that's centered on you is immediately wasted. And with the Ravage, with the Wraith Fire Blast coming out from the Skeleton King and the Wraith King, and with all the Ancient Apparition Ice Blast, they can very easily kill the Chen. Another difference with the draft is last time they had Dragon Knight, who could act as a retard mag and draw fire, and this game they also have the Ancient Apparition. So if they're able to clip enough heroes with the Shadow debuff, the Chen is completely useless then. The huge amount of healing that he provides from the Hand of God as well as the mech no longer works through the Shadow debuff. And so the Chen pickup could actually be what cost them the game. If they went for something like an Enigma, they'd have a lot more teamfight presence. Since you've also got a very powerful jungling hero. Aghanim Scepter up on the Silencer, so he'll be able to use that for the next few engagements. You can saw the effect of the curse of the Silencer had in the last engagement on when Shep engaged with the Chronosphere. If he picks up the Refresher Orb as well, 14 seconds of silence with a level 3 ultimate. Shepard actually very far forward, time walks to safety, Humming Missile running with the vision. But Stampede is there to be then surely he gets away. Daedalus up on him. And Chen first the Ice Blast are there, hits, so that could be enough damage to bring him down. Never mind, he backtracks it, and he's going to be sent home. Good play coming from Wernson to ensure that even if the homing missile hit, he should be able to still make it out of there. And that backtrack, ensuring that he wasn't in any danger. Daedalus up on the Faceless Void, now going towards the BKB. He knows that all he has to do is provide damage. If he's able to kill the Gyrocopter at the start of a fight, he's done his job, but he could then turn around and start smacking everybody else around. Since Razor, while he's powerful now, he will start to taper off. Razor could be building towards either an Assault Cuirass or towards a Refresher Orb of his own, since if you refresh the Eye of Storm, you've got 2 procs of Eye of Storm. So it's up to 6 attacks a second on one guy. So it's -6 armor every second. It's a huge amount. Understanding once again caught out of position. Sanjin and Yasha not doing all too much in that engagement. I walk actually going to take him 4. I'm going to be feeding a spree the Shep. 2-man Ravage actually lands. 3-man lands on Pengu as well. Signature is going to be taking a 4. Ice Blast lands on Freydolf, and Freydolf with the creeps doing damage might actually be shattering. Yeah, it's a level 2 ultimate. He's going to shatter from this. So Ancient Apparition at least able to get some kind of revenge. But 1 for 3 as well as committing a Ravage. Very costly engagement for TDT. And Shepardtherm once again carrying his team on his back. They tried to shut him down this time. They were only able to get 1 kill on him. And even though this time they grouped up as 5 and took a lot of towers, the Faceless Void team fight. I mean, you saw how much damage the Skrillex's Death Wall is able to do, especially in conjunction with the Malediction. Shepardtherm, he spots out the Dominating Creep, smacks it down 1 hit. Creep never stood a chance. Crap Pack is going to throw out the Ancient Apparition Ice Blast to try to pressure Shep out. Look how much damage it does with the damage application from Mask and Madness. And he's going to be very wary. If he takes too much damage, he could be taking 4. But Warrunner hanging around the background. If the cooldown lands, actually could kill him. Never mind, he time walks out in time. And Chen can always send him back. But Warrunner looks like he's going to be trading his life. Undersea is up for revenge. The SNY now paying dividends with the movement speed. Never mind. Centaur, Hoofstorm catches him out. Homing Missile flies out. Stampede being committed once again. Stampede's a great way to counteract the Homing Missile. Flat Cannon doing what he can. They don't want to continue to die for this. They'll put the way in a position. Crap Pack pushing himself a bit too far forward. Shepard's waiting in the wings in case if something was to happen so he could commit with the Chronosphere. Although he wouldn't have enough mana for the walk as well. Wraith King now looks like he's going for what could be a Heaven's Hellbird. Jam of True Sight up on him. Since Necronomicon, not really a good item on him. Basher, especially, and not too much of a good item, especially since he went for the Face Boots. It doesn't have the attack speed to make worthwhile usage of it. And if he goes for an SNY as well, I might actually hit somebody. Another signature. Blink Dagger up on him, building towards that Refresher Orb. Or he could be going towards a Shiva's Guard. Refresher, actually, he probably doesn't want to go for the Refresher Orb this game because the Global Silence will completely wreck him in these engagements. Might actually even be forced to go for something like a BKB. Or a Shiva's Guard would probably be the most reliable item. Looks like I'm actually having a little bit of lag. And Gyrocopter still does not have a BKB. His items have not progressed at all. Ever since he's picked up the SNY, his items are stagnated. Razor has a lot more net worth than he does. Shep, 5,000 item gold lead on him, so that's another item. So he's got his BKB now. It's going to be very hard to kill the Faceless Void, especially when he hits that hard with the Mask of Madness and the Daedalus. Usually on Faceless Void, you don't necessarily have to build damage, but if you've got damage and attack speed, why the hell not? It's going to be the solo rush on very easily. 552 crits coming up from Shepardtherm. If he's able to catch a single hero on his own, he can smack him down. He was able to very quickly kill Gyrocopter and the Chronosphere. So all they're doing right now is ignoring the Razor, ignoring the Wraith King, focusing on Gyrocopter, who's the vast majority of the immediate damage coming out from the Radiant side. And if it turns into a long, drawn-out fight, they should be able to do a fair amount of damage. It looks like he's disassembled it, so gone for the Heaven's Halberd, but that's a very bad thing to do for the one-position hero. When your one-position hero is forced to go for a Heaven's Halberd, especially right as the enemy hard carry has picked up a 10-second BKB, that's 1,800 gold down the drain. That's 4,000 gold that's completely wasted. He could have picked up a BKB for that. No one's sure that if he gets called out in the Global Silence, he can at least pop the BKB, throw down his cooldown, throw out his Rocket Barrage, and try to do as much damage as possible before he dies. Shepardtherm leaps forward. No Trolls, so leaps forward as well. So it looks like they tried to engage on each other. Pengu caught out the Ray Fire Blast. Stamp even used Global Silence used as well to prevent the Ravage from coming out. Pengu's been silenced up. He turned around and accidentally purged himself. Space runs with a double edge. I don't know what he's doing. He's pushing himself a bit tit too far forward. No Ancient Apparition Ice Blast to disable the regen. And we've actually got mass disconnects happening from both teams. Quick pause coming out from them. Good manners coming out from YBS. As that couldn't have happened at a worse time. Good sportsmanship coming up from YBS as they pause, even though it's the enemy team. In a pub game, this is something you never see happen. Shepardtherm still has an Aegis as well as the Chronosphere. So he could choose to time walk in right now. Oh, he doesn't have time walk. He can actually turn around and Chronosphere the understudy as well as Nadio's signature. So signature has to blow the Ravage prematurely if he wants to prevent himself from being ravaged, from being chroned. And if he catches out 2 in the Chronosphere, he can actually kill both of them with the amount of damage he has with the Daedalus. Turns around, Ravage being popped prematurely to be able to prevent it from happening. Still catches on 4, Cooldown lands on 1, Ice Blast lands on 4, Reincarnate, so much damage coming out from that combination. And that's a 5-man wipe, and maybe another one that they got off the back of that Ravage. Nadio's signature is going to turn around and be able to kill Iwalks, the Shepherd Thumb, at least going to get a retaliation kill. And then he walks himself out to safety, homing missile still tracking him, but with the movement speed from the Mask of Madison, with Time Walk coming off cooldown very shortly, he should be able to make it on home. But that being said, amazing fight coming out from TDT with that Ravage. He might actually be taking a fall. Stun was a bit too late. He tried to stagger it out. And the understudy wasn't able to use the halberd at all. So the Heaven's Helper not actually doing all too much this late into the game. Something that you have to keep in mind is Heaven's Helper is an item that your utility player should be building, never your hard carry. If your hard carry is forced to build a Heaven's Helper, you know that you're in dire straits for a game, unless if there's a full protect 1 strat and the enemy carry hasn't picked up a BKB yet. So if it's something like a Templar Assassin who went for an early Death Stone instead of an early BKB, then the Heaven's Helper makes a lot of sense since you could disarm her. But that tactical reincarnate right as the cooldown landed with the Ice Blast, Crap Pack, MVP of that last fight, able to land a 4-man Ice Blast off the back of Nado's signature's 4-man Ravage. He blew it prematurely, but it looks like the enemy team retreated back into it. He used it to prevent Faceless Void from chrono him. Faceless Void, average turn rate, so by the time he turned around to chrono, he'd be eating the Ravage, since Ravage is an instant cast point. Faceless Void will be interesting to see what item he chooses to go for next. We could be seeing something like a Butterfly to give him a lot more survivability, but that's an Aghanim Scepter now up on Crap Pack, and an Aghanim Scepter is a huge deal, especially into the 17-second debuff with Shadow. Means that if he's able to hit 2-3 heroes again, no mech, no Hand of God for you. Only Entropy. So Notra still farming away. Looks like he's going for he's got a sound drop on him, so he's probably going to be building towards the Heaven's Halberd as well. I guess if the game goes late enough, the Void's BKB start to wear off, then these Heaven's Halberds are really going to start to pay for themselves then. But at the moment with a 9-second BKB up on them, if Void initiates on them, they're screwed. If Void's able to BKB before they can Halberd him, or if they BKB through the Halberd, then he's screwed. So they're really relying a lot on the Ancient Apparition as well as the Tidehunter to be to make these huge plays. So actually just going to double check if it... Disarm effect can't be purged. No, it might actually persist through BKB. I know it can't be dispelled from the Mantis Stone, but I believe BKB purges off. Invisibility Room going to be picked up by Shepherd Thumb. So the drawback of this full protect 1 strat is you're up against a Tricore, you've got the Razor, you've got the Tidehunter as well as the Gyrocopter, and the Wraith King is gradually becoming a core. And if he does, his crit hurts a hell of a lot, even though he doesn't have much attack speed to work with, and Wraith King's just constantly in your face with the stun, so when the BKB starts to cooldown becomes a lot lower, and your BKB wears off, you can find yourself in a very sticky situation. You're constantly being stunned, constantly being disarmed, and then just generally being focus fired by everybody else. Razor looks like he's going for a BKB, Necro 2 up on Warrunner, so going for the same build he went last time, no Aghanim Scepter. I guess since they're timing their fights around the Faceless Void Chronosphere, Hand of God isn't necessarily a critical factor in these engagements, especially since if you get hit by the Ancient Apparition Ice Blast, that's 4,200 gold down the drain. Refresher Orb now up for the Silencer, so he's got that double Global Silence. That's a lot of mana burned off, as well as a long time to be completely disabled. Understudy, hopefully he'll be going towards a BKB now. Since Mantis Style is a terrible item on the Gyrocopter, it doesn't really give him enough damage to justify the cost. And Gyrocopter doesn't want to build attack speed, all he wants to do is stack damage. So similar to a Weaver, you don't necessarily need attack speed, you just want to stack damage as much as possible, then maybe later on you might want to pick up a Butterfly. Since that forces the Faceless Void to have to go for an MKB, and he doesn't have the slots to be able to do so. Global Silence being used, space, caught up with the Chronosphere, they only catch out Crap Pack. So it's a pretty mediocre Chronosphere, but even then, the evidence for that to fight without the Ancient Apparition Ice Blast. Iwalks to be taking a fall as Shep, and able to smack him silly. Space, going to catch out Nado's Signature. Signature was unable to use Ravage, he doesn't want to use the Ravage. So he's going to try to keep himself alive, might be able to do so. And he takes a fall. Notra also fleeing for his life. Trying to juke himself out, and there you go, Shiva the TP back himself back home. And that double Global Style is completely determining that fight. No Ravage for you, no Ice Blast. and no Eye of the Storm. Huge amount of damage the ship was able to output. So even though those BKBs starting to wear off, with the 14-second window of opportunity you have, BKB might not even be a critical factor. They really need a sheep stick for once the BKB starts to shorten down, since then since they won't be able to stun him. And the disarm will be nice, but by the time you're able to get the disarm off, you're already one hero down. So they should be able to take a free Tattoo Tower off the back of that. 5,000 gold lead going in favor of the enemy team, and about 9,000 EXP lead. Necro 3 up, so once and able to provide a lot of split pushing presence. Ancient Apparition Ice Blast catches on 3. Good play coming out from the AA. That's the only way they could try to delay this. Cooldown uses well to threaten the retreat, since they can't eat too much damage with a 17-second Ancient Apparition debuff. If they take too much damage, they can shatter, or even tick down from the dots. They have to be very careful. Freydolf almost has his Agnum Scepter, so he'll be having that Death Ward in these engagements. He wasn't actually able to use it at all in that last engagement, just because the only hero called out with the Chronosphere was the Ancient Apparition. But that double Global Silence took a lot of work in these engagements. They're going to have that combo up, and again in 60 seconds. And Silencer now probably going to be building towards something like a Sheep Stick. Since with all the intelligence he steals, and with the Glaives of Wisdom, Silencer outputs a lot of damage, even without damage items, just by staying alive in fight and stealing intelligence. That's the 75% additional damage you get from the glaive is pure damage. So he cuts through all the armor. Wraith King, he wants to get level 3, so he's got that 60-second cooldown on the Reincarnate. Shepherd Therm, forced to pop BKBs to keep himself alive. Very costly retreat, now down to 7 seconds. But Gyrocopter looks like he's going for an MKB, so no BKB for him. Could prove to bite him in the ass if he gets called out with the Paralyzing Cask, or with the Hoof Stomp initiation. But if Tidehunter is able to land a good Ravage, that could determine the fight. But while I say that, Faceless Void, MKB up on him as well. I was mentioning how he might not have the other spots to go for it, if you want to go for something like a more defensive item like a Butterfly. But he's sick of the evasion. MKB as well as Daedalus, absurd amounts of damage coming out, as well as the Agnum Scepter. Yolo and Swagtronics is 4 Protect 1, and Shepherd Therm we trust, but he's so far proving to be up to the task. Massive amount of net worth up on him. Pengu as well, also starting to catch up in terms of farm. And he's the team fight carry. All he has to do is be able to drop that double Global Silence. That will determine them, and that will win them fights. 14 seconds where you can't use any abilities, as well as eating the Curse of the Silent. So that's 840 dot damage to take, as well as 420 mana that's burned off. On the support heroes, it's a sizable amount. 840 HP is about half of Silent Ancient Apparition's, more than half of Ancient Apparition's life, so it drops into about a third of his HP. I walk, Agnum Scepter up, and those items haven't really progressed. The advantage of going to the Refresher Orb is usually to counteract the Silence's Global Silence. You build a BKB, but Global Silence penetrates BKB. So if you go for, if you have a Refresher Orb, you wait for them, you throw out your first Global Silence, wait for them to pop their BKB, then you Global Silence again with the Refresher, and that will silence them even through BKB. Heaven's Halberd now up on the Wraith King. It's the reason why Silence is such a powerful teamfight carry. If he's able to get the Agnum Scepter, a Refresher Orb, the amount of lockdown he provides inadvertently just by pressing R. Understanding going to be eating the Chronosphere as well as the Global Silence, and he takes a fall again. Poor decision making coming out from the Gyrocopter with the unconventional S&Y pickup as well as the Halberd. So it means that at the moment 6,100 of his gold, of his net worth, is actually completely useless. The Yasha isn't going to give you anything in these fights. Actually, come to think, almost all of his items are completely useless in these team fights. Since the Heaven's Halberd's been negated by the Faceless Void, you're not going to stay alive long enough to be able to disarm him, and the evasion's not doing anything with the MKB. Yasha's more of a farming item. It does give you the mobility to, when you're chasing people down, but when you're dying at the very start of a fight, it gives you no survivability. Same thing with the Helmet Dominator. Notra going forward on Freydolf. Freydolf can actually choose his turn and stand and fight. Stampede being used, yeah, he's going to turn around. Paralyzing Cast coming up cooldown very, very shortly. Pengu hanging around to provide a bit of covering fire and some assistance. He's got the Refresher Orb to refresh his Global Silence if he needs to do so, but otherwise he's going to wait 70 seconds. Roshan respawning in a minute, so the Aegis could be the critical factor. Eyewalk doesn't even need the Chronosphere, the double edge, the Hoof Stomp, and right clicks coming out from Faceless Void with Mom Spaghetti. Too much damage coming out from him, and that means that they should be able to secure the Aegis the Immortal, and if Shepherd Therm has the Aegis the Immortal for the next fight, that looks like GG. They're not going to have enough damage to kill the Faceless Void. Trying to kill the Faceless Void with an Aegis might be too much to ask for. He's going to be forced to sell his Midas, so he'll be crying tears of greed. Understudy still doesn't have his MKB, really needs to save for buyback. if they want to have any hope of trying to delay this fight. So that means he has to farm an extra 2,000 gold before he wants to finish his MKB, just to ensure that he has buyback for these engagements. In fact, every hero on the Radiant side really needs to start saving for buyback. Maybe that's what Wraith is thinking. Tier 2 tower is going to be taking a 4. Wraith King been doing a fairly good job. He's only got 1 kill, 0 deaths, and 10 denies, so good performance coming out from Nado's signature. Sorry, Notra. Doing a bit of split pushing over in the top lane. So he knows he's got reincarnate, so he's going to at least make it a trade, tier 2 for a tier 2. Good recognition coming up from Notra. If you panic, TP back home. He even forces up the glyph. So if they look to defend this, he really should commit for this push. Never mind, Global Silence decided to go in for a fight. The understudy every single time, caught out with the Chronosphere. Shepherthorn, BK pops to BKB, secondary Global Silence, kills both cores. Wraith King dies, Reincarnate's popping, Crap Pack fleeing for his life, gets Time Walk Force Gate, Smackdown, Static Link up on Shepherthorn. Shepherthorn slows on the walk away, might have overcommitted for this. His teammates are there, Ravage finally comes and catches out 5, fantastic Ravage! Coming from Nado's signature, Blade Mob in Popeye space, he doesn't give it down, Death Ward as much work as possible, the action might even kill off the entire team, does so much damage before he goes down. Shepherthorn buys back, looks like he has Boots of Travel's back and towards a creep, he can choose to re-engage if he chooses to do so, kills Nurture immediately, Ironwalk takes the fall, Nado's signature, Anchor Smasher, but he's going to take a fall as well. Buyback is up on the Razor, but he's dealing with like a buyback, and that looks like game over once again. Shepherthorn carrying his team out with the team fight impact coming up from them. 4 protect 1 strategy with the global side, with the double global silence, the Hand of God, as well as the Centaur and the Witch Doctor to provide covering fire into lockdown with the paralyzing cask, as well as the hoof stomp respectively. They were able to fight this 5 this time, but it turned out they weren't able to shut down the Faceless Void cooldown. At least defends a second set of racks, so at least able to protect himself from being double racked. Give him a window of opportunity to try to make a comeback. Sheepstick now up on Pengu. You're looking at a 14,000 gold lead and a 15,000 EXP lead. There's a slim chance, but there's always a chance. So if they're able to wipe the enemy team, force out, since Faceless Void was forced to buy back, if they're able to kill the Faceless Void, they could potentially go for a tower push of their own, a throne push of their own, just because all of their net worth is centered on the Faceless Void. They're going for a Roshano, so the Aegis of the Immortal is going to make that very unlikely. Silencer with a Sheepstick, he's actually doing a huge amount of damage. Warrensten's actually going to die to the Ancient Apparition Ice Blast. He died the way he lived, hugging his carry. Shepherthorn picks up the Aegis of the Immortal, sells the Midas. 4k up on him. MKB now finished by Gyrocopter, but he needed buyback more than the MKB. Although then again, if you lose the next fight, it's game over anyway. It's just the issue that every single fight, all Faceless Void has to do is chrono the Gyrocopter, since you've got the Global Sun to prevent the rest of the team from being able to help him out. So great drafting coming up from YBS, bringing back the old 4 protect 1 strategy with the twist, with the team fight twist coming out from the Silencer. Notra level 16, level 17, so he's got the level 3 reincarnate. But at this point, you can pretty much ignore the Wraith King. He's not doing enough damage to be considered a threat worthy of focus firing, and even if you do kill him through the reincarnate, Faceless Void at this point can probably solo the entire enemy team, so long as the Global Silence is present. So Global Silence means that the only thing they could do to Faceless Void is hit him, which he's going to dodge since he's got the backtrack. And they don't have any Sheepsticks, there's not all too much they can do. Tidehunter forced to go for a BKB, but the BKB is immediately going to be interrupted by the second Global Silence. So he has a very small window of opportunity to be able to pop his BKB and then pop his Ravage. But at the same time, if Silence is forced to use his second Global Silence prematurely just to prevent the Ravage, you're countering the refresher roll with a 4,000 gold item, so it's a pretty even trade. But Tidehunter being able to ensure the Ravage, since you saw in that last engagement, 5-man Ravage in the entire team, they were able to turn around and get a fair number of kills, force the Faceless Void to buy back. If he didn't buy back, they could have perhaps gone for more kills. But Pengu, even without any traditional carry items, he's still doing a lot of work with that 14-second Global Silence. There's no way they can catch him out of position as well. It's because he doesn't even have to be anywhere near the fight to use the Global Silence. And there's always the defensive Stampede coming out from space, so the Centaur Warrunner pick, even though Centaur Warrunner's been having a pretty terrible game, as long as he's there to be able to provide the Stampede, he's doing his job. So Notra, continue to farm away. Make sure that he has buyback, or at least another item that can help them win the game. Maybe let me think of something like a Blade Veil. Understudy MKB up on him. He does an obscene amount of damage if he's allowed to get that damage off. But Faceless Void, double damage up on him. Chronosphere is the understudy. BKB, double global stun to prevent the Ravage as he saw another signature pop to BKB. He's able to get the Ravage off anyway, never mind, he popped to BKB later on. Shepardstone takes the fall, that's GG well played being called. Yolo brand Swagtronics moving into the finals up against Team MX. So we've got a grudge match incoming at 7 o'clock.
Victory and well deserved.
And it looks like the boys from TDT will be duking it out to determine who goes into 3rd and 4th position up against, not sure what the other team is, I'll have to double check with Dinosaur. But nonetheless, grand final should be starting at 7 o'clock, so that's a best of 5. Well played to both teams, 42 minutes in, that's game over for game number 2. So we'll be taking a quick break, well, long break until 7 o'clock, so that's when I'll be seeing you. 49 signing out.